Thank you for joining us on America's Mom today. We're bringing a very special guest to you. With 38 years of taking care of community members through his service in chiropractic, he is a brain expert and has found himself, like many of us, having to pick sides, having to make tough choices and tough decisions. When you live in the most progressive place in Colorado, it's even harder to hold the line and secure what you believe while the rest of the community is pushing on you and trying to shut down your thoughts, your belief, even your business. So we are so fortunate today to have Dr. Tom Lankering with us. Thank you for joining us. You've been able to spend time and talk with Bobby Kennedy and Del Bigtree. I mean, you're used to being in the combat zone at this point, I think.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think just one of the things that you just mentioned, you know, through this, the last 2.5 years or so, sometimes it's been challenging, but other times it's really been easy because I've been really clear about there's a lot of things that I see that are wrong. And I think it's more difficult for me not to say anything, not to stand up. You know, my 38 years of my bioenergetic chiropractic work that I've been doing, I mean, it's been almost 45 years that I've been studying biology and the sciences and the immune system and things and so forth. So, and a lot of what I do, I have a mission, you know, I have a purpose, you know, with the brain-based wellness and the different things. And so before, a lot of people were under chronic low-grade stress. Now, since this situation, they're in chronic high-grade stress and the health of what's people's going on. And so many times with people and their health, it might seem like a mystery when they're dealing with these different things. And I have what I call a home run formula, where I just cover the basic bases, like a baseball field. And when I get back to working with that and seeing how the brain is stressed and the patterns that these people are in, you know, even around here, if you're going to build a huge, extravagant house, you have to have a foundation. Yeah. So it's nice to be able to go back to the foundation. But again, back to some of this stuff, I couldn't be quiet. You know, I just saw some of these things that were so wrong because back as a chiropractor in 1987, there was a group of chiropractors and Dr. Chester Wilk, and they filed a case against the American Medical Association. So it was an antitrust case. And it literally showed how the American Medical Association was trying to wipe out chiropractic because that was the second largest healthcare profession. And it showed up all the dirty stuff of what they were trying to do, as well as understanding the history of the pharmaceutical industry. And then with all the studies, just understanding the natural immune system, which is still the most amazing, the human body is still the most amazing, we want to call it mechanism, organism, you know, thing going on. If you treat it right and remove the interference and provide it the right nutrition, it functions. And so many people lost that or have not become aware. And I think it's because of this propaganda machine that's been building up, and they've conditioned to people, you know, the plop, plop, fizz, fizz mentality type of thing. So yeah, it's been amazing.
You know, I read an actual report that was put out by the Department of Public Health, and it said that they had actually done research on the best ways to coerce communities, people, you know, entire countries, and fear was the biggest motivator to get people to do what you wanted. And the Department of Public Health, both in Colorado, all over the country, all over the world, started using that tool. It must have been really frustrating for you, being a man of health. You've been taking care of this community, and when something like the Department of Public Health can override your relationships with your community, the service you've provided, your education on health, and tell people that all of these other things to mask, social distance, stay in your home, and then inevitably take this crazy shot. How was that for you, seeing this interference in your work in your own community and knowing the truth about what was going on? How do you deal with that as a doctor?
Well, it's always been challenging, you know, and that issue of trying to educate, enlighten people, empower people about their bodies and their own health the challenge has always been, you know, the medical profession and the way that people think. So that's kind of part of what has been going on with this. And I said right from the beginning, I mean, writing letters to the editor, although now the Aspen Daily News, I'm censored and they won't take my information anymore.
I
But
thought they were so progressive and wanted great ideas, and nobody gets shut down in Aspen. No, that's not the case.
Well, I always thought so, but believe me, it was shocking for that. But one of the things that I had maintained was that if this was about health, they never mentioned anything about health. They never mentioned vitamin D, vitamin C, don't eat sugar, don't eat junk food, exercise, think properly, have a good. They never mentioned anything really to improve your health. It was a mask. It was, shaking your hands 6 feet apart, And I started looking at this stuff, and fortunately, I had the great experience, wonderful experience for me to interview Bobby Kennedy Jr. on my TV show, and so I've been able to be around those thinkers, who are some of my sources who have been with this, who have questioned the status quo, and who have looked deeper, and who are independent. It's amazing because a lot, Joseph McCullough, Del Bigtree, Bobby Kennedy, David Martin. I mean, so a lot of these people have been mentors of mine, who I've gone to, and listened. And it's also interesting to see how people are shooting the messenger and not listening to the message.
I mean, they've all been annihilated off social media. I mean, you can't find them on Facebook, Twitter. I know for a while RFK was deleted there for a while. Del Bigtree he's had to resort to other methods to get his message out, mostly relying on us, on we the people.
Yeah.
Those people have been silenced because their message was one of hope and healing from where I'm sitting versus fear, stay in your home, comply, and take a shot.
Yeah. So, and the vaccines, like the show I did with Bobby, we were talking about vaccines, and it's just, Bobby he does his homework. I mean, I've never met anybody who does the research like that, but just following the money line with the vaccine companies, before the 1989, the vaccine laws, I think the vaccine companies were making like maybe $1 billion a year or so, no, $1 million a year. And then when they came on and that the kids had to get all these shots, the vaccine companies were making $50 million a year. I'm sorry, I forget the numbers right now, but it was huge. But they were making over $500 million a year for the diseases being caused by the vaccines. So I started seeing that, and I started going, well, there's definitely a money line, when this whole thing was going on, which is also pretty amazing. To interest it. But anyway, so there's...
Well, I found so many people have been educated through this process, and you spoke out at a Keep Colorado Free and Open event in Glenwood, Colorado. That's where I first saw you speak, and I was really, so encouraged by that, because we needed professionals coming out and being courageous and being willing to stand up to this narrative and to people's fear and help set them straight, give them hope, and we're going to live, we're going to make it through this. And that's what you did. You are instrumental in making sure that your community has the real solutions. So when we're walking into this new phase, COVID is somewhat behind us, but we have this whole issue of the shots and what's happening to people with those. Have you met a lot of resistance as you talk about the effects of the solution to ending the lockdowns and the shutdowns from COVID?
Well, I could have if I wanted to, but I have to say, and I'm not saying it from a place of arrogance, but I have a certainty and knowingness. And part of what my attitude and outlook has been is that we needed COVID to happen. It has actually been good. It's scary, it's crazy, there's a lot of stuff, people have suffered, people have died and so forth. But it's like Bruce Lipton talks about different societies, and everything I work with is energy, bioenergetic, all right? So my work is to raise people's frequencies and energies. So I'm also aware of things that lower their frequencies and energies, fear being one, toxins, toxic thoughts, toxic substances, are the things. And he has a great example of, he has a plate with sand that's vibrating, it creates this beautiful design. And then he changes and he turns the frequency up to go to a higher frequency. And during that transition is chaos. But to get to the new higher frequency, you've got to go through this chaos. So I've always felt that this is a new opportunity and that we are going. And unfortunately, there's going to be casualties along the way. different types of casualties. I hope I'm wrong. I've never wished them so wrong in all my life. But so there's going to be casualties. But nevertheless, there are going to be those of us who are going to be leaders for the right reason, for compassion, to empower people, and to get to this new world order, our new world order, not the new world order that we're fighting, that we're dealing with. And it's a war that we're dealing with. I mean, and in my talk, and I've been saying all along, we're not dealing with bullets and rockets, but the war is for our minds and our spirits and our souls. And the way we win is with love and compassion and communication. And so there are those people who, I mean, it's not about convincing, but it's about, supporting people, because there's a lot of confusion out there, because people's real identities and their beliefs have been challenged. They don't know where to go, right? So they're clinging for whatever. And there are a lot of people with this, but I do think things are changing. I think that people are starting to see kind of a light, of what's going on with things.
Yeah, you're right in line with Justice Clarence Thomas, and his thoughts he just penned yesterday was, he's talking about these institutions falling, and that this might be the time that they actually do, because of the disillusionment of the American people. And you had mentioned you've never really been political, not really into politics. You're just living your life, serving your community, doing a great job at what you do, and then one day politics or policies found you and you had to take a stand. I guess what's curious to me is, why did you choose to be so public? You said it almost was like you couldn't not say anything, but most people, they really self-preserve, and they go within themselves and they just isolate and self-preserve so they don't lose anything. And obviously there's something bigger at play for you.
Yeah. I definitely feel something bigger at play. When people ask me how I got into chiropractic, I tell them destiny. And so I've had the voice inside me, about moving to Aspen at the time in '79. I walked outside and I saw the mountains, and the voice inside said, this is it, this is home, this is where you're supposed to be. And I had been ski instructing, but I went back to chiropractic school. I didn't even really know what chiropractic was. And I'm sitting in a class, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, it's like, boom, I heard the philosophy. I was like, this is it, I'm supposed to be a chiropractor in Aspen. And the voice was so clear. I couldn't, I might have thought maybe I should try real estate, or maybe I should try this. It was like, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And so that voice has been so clear. And I think, I know that I have a mission to help people. I've just always kind of had this, not to be overpowering, but, I mean, if there's a bee on the window, I'll take a glass and move them outside. I don't kill a bee. I don't step on ants, or anything like that. So life is precious. And so again, I don't feel like I really had any choice in it, and a lot of, there were chiropractors who would say, oh, don't say anything, just so we can keep practicing. Don't say anything, don't piss anybody off or anything. I was like, screw that. Right. I was like, we got to stand up. This is our calling. This is our time to rally. And it's fascinating. Like I'm taking this Constitution class, and I always liked the American Revolution. And I had thought it was 5%. Now people are saying it's 3% of the population that actually participated in the American Revolution. And look at what we got, and right?
Gives me
Did I get you,
thinking,
right?
Yeah.
And then World War II, and you look at, we have no idea what some people gave. They gave the ultimate sacrifice and died. I mean, really died for a sense of freedom, and so forth. And I feel the duty, to this country to fight for it, to fight for the freedoms, to fight for the rights, to fight for the choose what we can do with our own bodies. One of the big issues also, which a lot of people, it blows my mind that a lot of people are not aware of with this, deals with informed consent in the natural health care. And that informed consent came from the Nuremberg Code, right? From the World War II, the atrocities that happened in the world, in the concentration camps. So the Nuremberg Code came about saying that no government, no entity, no group could force, coerce, bribe, trick, whatever you want, to make a person do something to their body or put in their body. And that was the basis for informed consent, which is what all of healthcare, you can't go and treat anybody without providing informed consent, without letting them know what the side effects are going to be, so that the person makes the decision. I'm not making the decision. It's their body. They can do what they want. I can only offer them the education, the information. They make the decision. But that Nuremberg Code has been totally violated, totally ignored, and so many people don't even realize that. And I go, do you know what the Nuremberg Code is? I think I've heard about it. No. You can't think you've heard about it. Do you know what it is? Because that is, one of the fundamental rights, at least present day, that we have to protect our own sovereignty, our own individual rights of what we put in, and to force people, like with the Aspen Ski Company, to say, you have to get a shot or you can't work here. This year I said, I was an ambassador. I said, I'm not playing that game. Skiing has been a passion of mine for a long time, right? Oh, yeah. For a long time. And I said, no. I said, I'm not playing, and then show me your papers to go in a restaurant. I said, no, I'm not playing that game. And I skied at Sunlight. Tom Jankowski, he also spoke at our, Glenwood rally, and he spoke at our Concerned Citizens group. But those are the types of things where I think maybe it gets lost these days. It's really what's right or wrong. And I'm not telling people what to think or what to do, but be aware of what you're thinking and what you're doing, and think for yourself. What's right for you. It's the old, put your hand on your heart and see what your body says. So, excuse me if I get going off on this.
I absolutely love it. This is what I'm hopeful for, because this is not political.
No.
The calling on every American to stand up for their own rights, their own personal sovereignty. The big rant right now when the Roe v. Wade, thoughts. It's not even an action that's happening right now, but just the leaking of that, saying that potentially that might be overturned. That's the only kind of self-protection that, a lot of the people on the left who also supported the lockdowns and the masking and all of that, that's the only thing they're talking about when it comes to self-determination. We're talking about basic fundamental right of what you put on your face, what you inject into your actual body.
Right.
And it doesn't matter.
Right.
Somehow it's been lost. That's an American ideal, is you have control over this. Nobody can do anything or tell you what to do with this.
Yeah.
And it's been lost. So no, I absolutely, this shouldn't be a left or right issue. It should be an American issue. We have a constitution that protects us from that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's amazing that because taking this constitution class, Pastor Jim Tarr up at the Cornerstone Church.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an amazing person, and the people, and just the rights, and just the different things. And I mentioned this whole experience. Over through my life, I've gone through the different parties, Republican, because I'm more of an issue-oriented person. It's amazing to me how many people have this allegiance to a certain party and don't even think about it. I'm going, but wait, let's at least talk and have the dialogue. And so when this situation started coming, the COVID situation and so forth, because as a natural health advocate, and like I was saying, my understanding of the pharmaceutical industry, I started making statements, and President Trump was saying that, this will be over in May, and we should pull out of the World Health Organization, and this and different things. And I started making statements, and people were saying, well, you're a Trump supporter. I said, no, I'm a natural health advocate. This has nothing to do, I'm not relying on President Trump for health advice.
Right.
I'm not relying on county commissioners for health advice. They're whatever jobs they were doing. I said, I've been doing this stuff for 45 years. I said, I at least feel comfortable or certain and confident with my studies, because I still am a tenacious studier, with the work, and especially doing the brain-based wellness, and to see what's going on, which is interesting to see what's going on. So I say that because we have to accept responsibility for our own health, as to what's going on, and people just surrender their health. and surrender their rights and surrender their freedoms. And I go, wow, I mean,
well, and I would add, Bill Gates is no picture of health.
Whew.
And yet he is the one who has been, driving this conversation, partnering with the WHO, partnering with the CDC to tell us what to do with our own bodies when he is not he is no example to look to by any stretch. So we get to decide that. What is the best for me? Has it cost you? Has it cost you talking about these things? You do a grassroots program, you have your own show, and you state your opinion.
That's which I'm getting back to do the show because I think there's just a bigger role to play. But as I was saying, a lot of people in some of our organizations would say, "Oh, don't say anything, be quiet, just so we can keep practicing," because they don't want to be shut down like a lot of other businesses are shut down. And I said, you know what? And because the essential businesses were liquor stores, pot stores, and tattoo shops. And you go, my work that I'm dealing with, helping with pain and stress and health. You're telling me that these other companies are essential and I'm not? I said, you know what? This is a free country. I said, I am not compromising. I would not endanger anybody. I knew, just like the rest of the time, if you caught the flu, you stay home, you take care of things, you stay away from people, you get better, then you go back around.
As always.
As always, right? So I never saw that I was endangering people. I wouldn't do that. You're not gonna. I wouldn't hurt a flea, But so I drew the line, and certainly I lost people, and those people were okay, and maybe they'll come back, but I certainly gained people because people were knowing where I stood, and I stood that, look, if there's a real concern, I'm here to help you build your immune system as best as you can, to help you deal with stress as best as you can. You need me to really get through this, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you take the vaccine, even if you take the vaccine, you still have things that you can do, but here's an option, and so a lot of what I was speaking about was going, no, there are other ways, and we really got to talk about health. So I saw it as an opportunity. Did I lose? Did I, whatever, but it's not over yet, and now the opportunities, right? I mean, meeting you and being on the shows and meeting the tribe and a whole group of people, and like I said, leading into the new world, who knows where I have an idea of where I'd like it to go and where I want it to go, but that's not necessarily up to me, as to what I can do with it. So, yeah.
Well, I do find it interesting when you're talking about this idea of finding your tribe and finding your people. If you had denied what you knew was right inside and just tucked your tail and wore your mask, these doors would not have opened to you. I think it's so important for people to realize that there is so much blessing that comes from doing what's right, from being true about what you know is correct and not just falling in line for the sake of getting along. Look what it's cost us.
Right.
It's so it's just so hard to imagine what this world would be like had you not stood up.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do when you look in the mirror, right? I mean, you look in the mirror and you go, really?
Yeah.
Look at the man in the mirror, and see what's going on. So, yeah, and so, yeah, is it scary? Yeah. Is it challenging? Yeah. Is it rewarding? Is it, deep inside to know that, I'll die trying, I'll die on this sword going on, and I think that I have a mission and a purpose to work to fulfill. But what else are you going to do? Right?
Yep.
And you see things around here, so there's a real richness. And I think that even now, especially with the media and the way that it was going on, is that everybody was getting the shots and everybody was doing it, and everybody. And so if you didn't follow with the narrative, you felt like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one out here. I'm out here in a lifeboat, floating around in the ocean. But now, people are having the tribe, and even just to communicate with those maybe not seeing it the same way,
right,
is at least to ask questions. Where do you get your information from? What do you think? What is health for you? What's and to try to draw that out. And it's still amazing, just to kind of see how people have been. I don't think maybe it's been there before, but how people are so entrenched in their point of view. I was talking with someone yesterday, and saying, you want to have a conversation? He says, oh yeah, we have to, and then he was so entrenched. I was, yeah. And so I was just trying to ask questions to bring things out, and some people you can have conversations with, and some people you just like, well, I think I got to go get something to eat.
I got to get a drink.
I'm gonna have a double.
That's right. It became like a religion.
Yeah.
It became like a cult. And so you had to buy in 100% or you weren't faithful. You weren't virtuous. You didn't care about your neighbor. You hated grandma. You know, you had to either fall in line with this cult mentality or else you were just a really bad person. And we heard that a lot. And speaking of bad people, the WHO, the World Health Organization, there's some tricky stuff that they've pulled all along. They've proved they can't be trusted. I'm sure you have a lot to say about them and the CDC. I'd love to hear it. And also the direction that they're trying to take us with removing national sovereignty from 194 countries when it comes to exercising emergency medical orders over these sovereign nations, America being included in that. I really want to hear what you think about these organizations that have one ruler. They're dictatorships. They have no checks and balances. We all caught them in their lies over and over and over again, and yet they're talking about right now on May 22nd adopting amendments that will take away America's sovereignty to determine emergency medical when we need to shut down as a country or a state. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that because you are always paying attention to this stuff.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest issues, and I think that it's been going, and they've been, these guys know what they're doing. I mean, they have a lot of this. This is not just happening. I mean, they've been planning this out. And whether you look at, Gates and the World Health Organization and how they're financing and how they get these other countries, especially in Africa, that the Gates has to be able to use his vaccines or they don't get their funding from the World Health Organization. But I think that one of the biggest issues that I wish people would understand more would be this issue of fear. Because you talk about that, and even I find myself going, ooh, that's not good. That's scary. And so that fear is a survival mechanism in our bodies or in our brain. That when we get into that fear situation, our logic shuts down. A cornered animal is not, they're just on instinct, on survival. And so when you're in that survival, you're not thinking logically. You're not making choices and decisions based on taking information, and you're just in this survival. So I think that that's another situation that they're trying to scare us,
Right.
and they're doing a heck of a job scaring us into that situation. I think fortunately, our army has been growing, in that, if you were thinking, like, for example, back in the vaccines, it seemed like it was a 90-10 of those who were getting the vaccines versus 10% who were not. At least from some of my information, they were showing it was more of a closer to 50-50. You even look at the election, but you look at the numbers, it was not like a 90-10 split. I mean, it was pretty close numbers. And even now, with those, large people got the first shot, less percentage got the second shot, less now we're getting. And so you're finding people, even if they have gotten those shots, or maybe they're kind of regretting or questioning or wondering whether they should have. So it's not like we need to make up this 90-10. We have a pretty close situation, and I think that if they start, we've been fortunate in this country, we really haven't had a lot of pain inflicted upon us. But if they start taking some more rights away, maybe more people will wake up. Maybe more people will understand the psychology that they've been using to drive us into fear, to try to manipulate us. I haven't gotten around to reading the 1984 book. I mean, I read back in high school on different things, but you hear those different things. And so while I could get more into, well, gee, what if the WHO and the things, I'm saying, what am I going to focus on? And I think it's a matter of focusing on still fighting the fight, still communicating and still educating people and still talking to people about health and what real health is and what we really have to do, as opposed to get caught up in, what of all these? Because fortunately, I think there's other people with more influence, more power and everything else than me, but yet our army is building. So we have to keep doing what we can do to fight that. I have a lot of people asking me about the World Health Organization. So, but the name of the game is we got to get involved.
You said something, there's a book called The Outrage Circus. I highly recommend it. It's what made me finally wake up and realize that, you know, in the political party world, they're really two wings of the same bird, and they keep us stirred up so that we are always fighting each other and we're always kind of tearing each other down. So I actually love your answer about the WHO, and you talked about your job is to raise the energy in a positive way among all of our people, so we're not living in that space and we're not feeding that. I want you to talk more about that. Talk more about the science behind that, of having a toxic mindset versus an optimistic, hopeful outlook where you're focused on the good things and the blessings in life, because if we are staying in that constant outrage circus, we don't accomplish anything. We don't stay in our lane. We don't do the task God's given us to do. We're here, and we never really see any fruit of our labor. We're just constantly knowing all the new things. So I would love for you to talk just a little bit more about that.
It's a real challenge, you know. I mean, and I'm up for the challenge. I mean, personally, you know, I was like, oh, but I thought I could just kind of hang out, relax. No, not quite, you know. So, yes, from a bioenergetic standpoint, bioenergetic chiropractic. So bio is life, energetic is energy. So it's all about life energy. It's about raising our life energy frequency. So if we look at the home bases, right? Home base is physical or structural integrity, all right? First base is mental and emotional, which is off the chart these days. You know, that the mental and emotional pain and suffering that people are dealing with is just brutal. When you have an insight and you can really see, because a lot of people try to hide it in different ways. And then second base are toxins, and then third base are biochemical nutrition. These are things that are not in the body that should be, and these are things that are in the body that shouldn't be. So toxins and so forth. Also include acupuncture, meridians, but it's all about energy. And so when I address those different bases, it's about raising the vibrational frequency. So there's a scale of emotions that Power versus Force is the book. And it shows how the lower frequencies of emotions, anger, fear, worry, hate, it's on a scale of 1,000. So it's an algorithmic scale. So it starts slow and then builds up. And up at the top is love and gratefulness and, you know, all the wonderful things. And so like Buddha and Christ and those guys who were there would have been fun to hang out, you know. We'll see what happens.
Some conversations.
Some conversations there, right? So, but they were at 1,000 and these other people, but at the level of 200 is where mankind has a challenge of discerning truth from non-truth. And what's interesting is that 85% of the population is below that 200. Gives some insight, which some people would think, oh my God, where's the hope for salvation? Where's the hope for mankind if only 15% of the people are above this truth from non-truth? Well, the good news is that 15% has so much more power and energy that it can overcome that 85%, which goes back to that thinking if we're at a 50-50, you know, there's that critical mass that it doesn't have to be a 50-50. We just have to get to a critical mass to get people to really discern truth from non-truth. And so a lot of the work that I do, especially with the brain base, so I use, it's a technology called Brain Tap. It's fascinating. I'd love to share it with you there. And it's on my website and so forth. But it's a technology that uses light and sound. So we know about physical fitness, but what do we know about brain fitness? What do we do about brain health and brain wellness? And you hear all the talk about mental health awareness and everything, but you know, they're talking about going on a hike or something like that. It's like, come on.
Right.
Going on a hike, although I will say is good because when you're out with nature, you're at that frequency and grounding, and so you're in the environment of nature. So that's a lot of what we're working with is bringing your energy frequency out of this high beta stress, fight, or flight into more alpha, you know, which is your creative, your theta, which is your light sleep and intuitive, that's the meditative, and then delta, your deep sleep. People are having trouble getting into deep sleep because they're stuck in this high beta. Okay. So this Brain Tap technology is like a virtual reality headset, and it's about brain fitness. So doing one session a day is good, 2 sessions a day is better, 3 is the best. But it's about conditioning your brain, so creating neuroplastic changes in the brain. And it's about conditioning, just like you go to the gym. The only difference here, all you do is just sit there and lay down with your eyes closed. So it's a different type of workout. But we got to get our brains fit. We got to get our brains so that when we hear about the WHO, when we hear about the different things, and we might go into this fight or flight, but then the brain has the ability to go, okay, that's fine. Now let's get back to the task at hand. And then I use another technology called neuroemotional technique, because we have three brains. We have the brainstem that keeps us alive when we're in a coma, it keeps the heart beating and so forth. The neocortex is what most people think of as far as the brain, and that deals with conscious reasoning and thought and logic. But the third brain deals with the midbrain and the subconscious emotions, which are driving the bus 95% of the time. We think we know what we're doing. We're just on a neurological pattern of what's happening.
Yeah.
So the work that I do is not dealing with the conscious brain, which is what talk therapy is about. This deals with tapping into the subconscious, and I'm like an electrician of resetting the circuit. So it's like putting the plugs in the outlet, and one plug and one plug. One plug too many, you blow the circuit out. So my job is to pull the plugs out and reset the circuit, and then support it with the other work that I do. So it's a very holistic. I use the saunas, which is now I was just listening to an interview with Joe Mercola and Tony Robbins, another great mentor of mine. They're talking about the saunas, and so all these things are bringing the body back to balance, right? From this stress fight or flight system and this parasympathetic, which is our healing and digest and recovery and recuperation. So for example, so many people are dealing with digestive issues, and they think, oh, I have Crohn's, I have celiac, and everything else. What I've been finding is they're just way out of balance. We got to get their seesaw back to balance so that you can relax and have your meal, and that you're not stressed like that.
Dr. Lankering, you are such a positive force that we need right now.
Well, thank you.
I thank you so much for your time here today with me. I'm going to come see you and get my brain checked because we know we need it. I think that just what I'm taking from this interview with you today is to live in hope and to live with well-being, because fear has definitely been the destruction of our country this last couple of years, and our neighbors, our local communities, all of that. I just appreciate you so much and all your work. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you and all that you do. It's exciting. We have a mission, right?
Thank you all for being with us today. Remember, don't live in fear. All that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. Get active, be productive, and be an asset to your community. Thank you guys for being with us today. We'll see you back on Monday.